The quest for knowledge has pushed humankind to reach for the stars and uncover all sorts of mysteries. But there are some secrets we aren't meant to know. Join us as we explore the world's best-kept secrets. The Oscars. Award shows wouldn't be all that entertaining if the results were known beforehand, would they? And the bigger the award, the bigger the surprise. That's why the results of the Oscars are so well hidden. The secret behind who won for Best Actor and what really was the film of the year is kept so very close to the heart of the film industry. However important and well-guarded this secret is, keeping the information out of everyone's hands is done in a somewhat simple manner. Essentially, the ballot is counted by hand, so they're then tabulated in secret. 2 men have been chosen to count these ballots every year, a man by the name of Brad Altmans and also Rick Rosas. The 2 men are accountants at PricewaterhouseCoopers, and once they make sure of the result, they seal up the envelopes. Due to the somewhat archaic nature of this counting method, no one on the internet can interfere or leak any of the info. This hard work does ensure the results are a surprise for everyone else in the world. One day, 2 customers stopped into a gas station restaurant in North Corbin, Kentucky in the 1930s and didn't realize just how unlikely it was that they'd figured out how their own chicken meal was seasoned. They were served by the Colonel himself, Harlan Sanders, the owner of the station, and his recipe would remain a secret long after his death. Now, we do know some things about the famous Kentucky Fried Chicken recipe, mostly that it has 11 herbs and spices, in some form or another. Now, that may not be much to go on, but if you've ever wondered if the employees are holding out on you, they're not. Only 2 top executives in the entire company are privy to all 11 ingredients, and they're also the only ones who know what makes KFC's chicken so finger-licking good. Whether you're a fan of the Colonel's chicken or you outright hate it, it's one of the more guarded secret recipes in the world. A secret list passed down to powerful company positions is also the strategy for maintaining the formula for Coca Cola. Much like Kentucky Fried Chicken, the ingredient list and its proportions for the stunning tonic are held only by 2 CEOs at Coke. Now, having a recipe for the world's best-selling cola is important, and it's certainly worth a lot of money. But sometimes the measures that these executives take could be seen as a little bit extreme. The CEOs never fly on the same plane, under the idea that in the incredibly unlikely scenario of a crash, the company would be in absolute turmoil. In fact, the company has gone to such great lengths to protect the formula that when the Indian government passed a law in the 1970s that would require Coca Cola to divulge its ingredient list, Coke simply chose the alternative. That's right. Instead of complying with legislation, they just pulled out of India completely and would end up sacrificing untold profits. The original copy of the formula is in safekeeping with an undisclosed SunTrust bank in Atlanta. In order to make sure that SunTrust holds up their end of the bargain, Coca-Cola gave them 48.3 million shares of company stock. Considering that the original tonic not only had cocaine but also alcohol, let's hope that there's an updated ingredient list sitting in that safety deposit box. And of course, there are benefits and drawbacks to having your unique formula only known to 1 or 2 people situated high up in your company. Sure, it ensures secrecy, certainly, and the people with the knowledge are probably too invested in the company to divulge the secrets. But with such an important piece of information put into such delicate situations, bad things can happen. Take the recipe for McDonald's special sauce, for example. The original recipe for the secret sauce was actually lost in the early 1980s, and there was a period of time when it just wasn't the same. While this may only have really affected true burger aficionados, the fact remains that when one person screwed up, the recipe was gone. Fortunately for Big Mac lovers, a former executive named Fred Turner rejoined the company and apparently still remembered how to make the sauce. Google. How many times in a day do you Google something and actually go to the second page of the results? Well, let's face it. Most of the time, if the answer exists, Google has it covered in the first 2 or 3 selections. The algorithms behind Google's world-class search engine are altered and improved at a rate of, just about 500 improvements every year. With many of the world's top developers behind the multi-billion-dollar company, it's no wonder that the initial function, that of a search engine, works so extremely well. However, the secrets behind how Google searches really work and how to make your company appear at the top of the list are heavily guarded. There are strategies for search engine optimization, but the truth of the matter is that this valuable and complex set of algorithms is buried deep in the heart of the wondrous internet conglomerate. Chartreuse. While the recipes above have been kept secret for decades, there are other more meaningful recipes that have been hidden away for centuries. Chartreuse is a French liqueur, first made by the monks of the Grande Chartreuse Monastery in 1737. Interestingly enough, the instruction for the specific making of this magnificent alcohol was set out in a manuscript that dates back to 1605 that the monks discovered. It's made of distilled alcohol and a specific measure of 130 herbs, plants, and flowers. Now, this is certainly a little more complicated than Colonel Sanders' secret, and the color actually is named after the alcoholic beverage for its unique green hue. The flavor starts off sweet and then becomes both spicy and pungent, and this unique liqueur is sensitive to different temperatures, producing new tastes when served cold, room temperature, or even hot. At any given time, only 2 monks of the monastery actually know how to prepare the mixture, and it's only made in the distillery, on location. Habsburg napkin fold. Some of these secrets are valuable to company profits, or some secret ingredients are kept hidden for centuries. Other classified information is just a little less crucial. The Habsburg napkin fold is essentially the fanciest way that any human being can fold one single napkin. Its unique shape and hidden niches are eye-popping and wonderful, and the majestic technique would certainly spice up any wedding reception. That being said, it does deserve to be a national secret, known by 2 Austrian government agents. This technique has been close guarded and passed down since it was used to set the table of Emperor Austro-Hungary. While the empire did fall, the napkin fold would stand the test of time, and the Habsburg fold is shown in many museums in Austria and Hungary. Be warned though, these napkins are always closely watched by the guards. As mentioned, only 2 government agents actually know how to make this breathtaking piece of history, and they're due to pass on the technique before they die. Cromwell. When you work as hard as a revolutionary, you cannot count on people to be respecting you after you leave the world of the living. Oliver Cromwell was an Englishman from the 1600s who ended a long line of monarchy before taking over the country. After he died of natural causes, the monarchy then resumed, headed by King Charles II, who was, well, pretty spiteful. He would order Cromwell to be dug up, just so that he could be killed again. While this isn't exactly possible, Charles II did his level best. Cromwell was hanged from a scaffold for 12 hours, all before his head would be put on a spike. 300 years after his death, some royalists would find the head and dig it up to torture it again. Talk about die hard. While this may sound ridiculous, only 60 years prior to this conflict, a proposed statue of Cromwell began a debate in Parliament that led to rioting. And so the owner of the head and Cambridge University would come up with a solution. There was a hidden interment and no headstone. 2 Cambridge professors are the only people alive who know of the head's actual whereabouts. For the rest of the world, there's a plaque that says, "Cromwell's remains are nearby." These instructors will pass on the knowledge of its clandestine location upon retirement to a new professor, and go on with the hope that the secret remains kept. Camp Century. In war, it's important to have a fallback, and perhaps more importantly, it's essential that your enemy doesn't know about it. Camp Century was Plan B for the United States during the Cold War with the Soviets. The camp would be a hidden city built under the frigid snow of the North Pole in 1959. Initially, it was a scientific lab that was located beneath a huge iceberg near Greenland. And from the surface, it may have looked like nothing more than a slightly larger ice pyramid. However, in the hidden depths, this secret really flourished. There was an underground nuclear reactor and a staff of about 200 hand-chosen individuals. The city also came complete with a gym, a chapel, a library, and a movie theater, all in the dark cold of the underground Arctic. It was an amazing science lab that the military would commandeer for national security purposes. In fact, the military turned this strange city into a missile silo that was encased in ice with the aim of storing 600 nuclear warheads, and they did so close enough to Mother Russia. Alas, life isn't a James Bond movie. Guantanamo Bay. Now, we can't get through this list without mentioning the most well-known CIA prison, named Gitmo, but also affectionately known as the Guantanamo Bay Detention Camp. And it's located in, you guessed it, Cuba. Gitmo was established in 2002 by the George W. Bush administration during Bush's War on Terror, and it soon became a touchy subject for human